Hi, and we have a very special local talent, Minnesota, local writer, home writer right here from Minnesota, Nick Campanella. And we're going to be sharing out some information about his book. Please check the comments and the description below the video so you can purchase his book on his birthday, which is coming up February 18th, Nick's birthday. And we want to see his book hit some high record sales. He's offering it for $1 on Amazon.com on the February 18th. And also check out a link to that on nickcampanella.com. That's Nick, N-I-C-K, Campanella, Campanella.com. And there's a link there, so get ready because local boy Nick Campanella, new writer, he's got a couple other books too, also Order from Chaos and Path of Affliction. Looks like really interesting stuff, Nick. And what's your best case scenario for this new action, well, more mystery suspense novel that you've come up with?
Well, hey, thanks. Nice to meet you in person here while on video, and I appreciate your time and thanks for this opportunity to speak to so many great people. Thank you. Yeah, this book is called Devoid of Light. It is my third book. It is a fiction book, crime thriller, a little bit of love, a little bit of horror. But yeah, it's a story about a revengeless and the victims and the serial killers. It starts off with a guy who he finds his best friend's head in a box on his doorstep. And, Caleb Hunt is the protagonist. He thinks he's right at all his wrongs, but the nerd his friends picked on in high school, he's hell-bent on payback. And each box that he sends out represents a mark for death, and there's 5 boxes in total.
So those aren't any spoilers. There's something else going on that's like revealed little by little in the suspense. So there's a lot more to the plot than just the horror of the situation, right? There's some other interesting suspense aspect. It gets into a thriller, right?
Yeah, very much so. There's 3 main characters, and there's a love twist to it. And yeah, basically the villain, the antagonist here, he basically, he was abused at home. He was abused at school when he went home to tell his parents about it. Then his dad beat him, and this guy's just got this pent up anger. And 20 years later, after the 20-year high school reunion, he just starts plucking off all the people that picked on. But
That's
yeah, there's a lot more to it that I don't want to give away any spoilers, but
right.
yeah, basically there's a lot of suspense and drama and crime.
That's amazing. For this inspiration, do you have any friends in real life that you might have borrowed as inspiration for such a work? Or I mean, no, it's funny. It's interesting to have authors as friends because I have a few author friends and I always wonder if I'm going to end up in one of their books as inspiration for a character. But do you have any like places you go to in your memory where you have some interesting characters housed and then you pull those out for your work?
Yeah, fiction is fiction, but a lot of it does come from your memories and your dreams and stuff like that. So you don't want to legally, you don't want to say, oh, this is about this person, because then that person might get mad. But yeah, basically for this one, I never remember my dreams except for these certain dreams. All 3 of my books came from a dream. This one, in my dream, I woke up, I found my yearbook, I opened it, and there was this revenge list from this kid that my friends picked on, and it had a list of 4 or 5, 6 people, and I was number 6 on the list. And I just thought that was a good idea to start. Just a good, and it kind of went from there. And it's not me, it's not my friends, it's but it comes from this dream, these memories. I'm 44 years old, but I can remember ninth, 10th grade, kids getting their books dropped, squirt guns. One kid had a kick me sign on his back. And it seems pretty vicious, but these kids weren't getting beat up bloody or anything like that. But bullying does exist. I don't know if I'm not in high school anymore, but in my days, kids did get picked on and stuff, and some of them didn't like that very much. And the premise is, you ever, I don't know if anybody's ever thought of what happened to that kid that got picked on or bullied or even abused at home.
Yeah.
And I think that if you look at any serial killer, any child molester, any domestic terrorists, they probably, if you went back into their early childhood, they probably were abused or neglected one way or another.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a kind of a cautionary tale too. I had a history professor once who approached history as a mystery or a suspense that we would have to uncover, almost like a whodunit. Do you think there's any sense that when you're doing mystery writing or suspense writing, you've got to get it right in terms of the history as the story and the plot line unfolds? You've got to be really accurate about which things are dropped into the plot element at the right moment.
Yeah, you got to be careful. I actually just submitted this book to my publisher yesterday, and at the very last minute, I noticed a date that was off, and I had to quick fix that, and then also quick and scam through. In the beginning of each one of my chapters, I like to have a date, and because this is a non-linear story, so there is a backstory. And so
Right.
I just got to be pretty precise there. And yeah, I had to go through it again. And now everything's locked down. But yeah, I think history is, you and I, and people might disagree with us, but you and I both know that, a lot of history what we're taught is actually fiction, not everything, but I mean, some of the headlines going back from, World War II, Vietnam,
Right.
9/11, this pandemic that we just had, they come out and they give us these so-called facts, and then it comes out later that that was fiction, and they knew it was fiction. They were just lying to us. But in these fiction books, the good thing about it is that I can go in there and write the story, and I can edit it, and I can hire an editor and have them kind of lean me in the right direction if I'm going somewhere where it doesn't need to be, or where they think my readers might be uncomfortable.
Right. Because I think, like we were saying, that readers of suspense and mystery can be a pretty unforgiving audience to write for, because they are critical thinkers and they notice details really carefully. So this is a non-linear story, so you might be jumping in and out of a timeline, and then there's some background that fills in, and you've got to be really accurate with that, because if a reader of this finds an error, they'll just slam the book. So it's a tension there for the author to get it right. So
Yeah, no, definitely. And, I mean, a lot of my readers will just be so excited, and, there's so much action. It's so fun. And I think they're just going to love it. But yeah, you're going to get a couple people that are just really picky. And then a couple people, in my last book, I had one of my first reviews. It was just a wonderful review. But at the end, he offered a little bit of constructive criticism. And he just said that he wished that my characters were a little bit more fleshed out. He loved the story. He was very intense. He called it. But, so I took that constructive criticism. And in this next book, I fleshed out the characters just a little bit more, So, I mean, I don't mind criticism. If I miss something, I want to learn about, because, I mean, my first two books, I only had one bad review for each book. It's from the same person. I think it was actually, I think it's just a hater. I don't think any person is going to read one book and hate it so bad and then go ahead and spend another 8 hours to read that book again. But the rest of the 100 reviews that I have, it's a love fest. These people just love what I've created here, and it's awesome. It's a good feeling. But at the same time, because it's a love fest, I don't get the constructive criticism that I need to get better. So I do like and I appreciate it. I mean, sometimes people don't feel comfortable bashing a book on a review, with any
yeah,
criticism. But yeah, I welcome my readers to send me an inbox. My inbox is welcome to anybody. If you have an idea or something that I could have did different, I appreciate that and I learn from it.
there could be industry pressures to give positive reviews to, they think they're boosting sales, but I mean, I'm not convinced that even a negative review or some so-called bad press is going to hurt you that much. And to think that someone would spend so much energy, reviewing, it's like, if you don't like it, just find another book to review if you hate it that much. It's sort of astonishing, right? How is
Yeah.
this? So you fleshed out the characters based on this constructive criticism. Is this going to be sort of a departure from your other two books, uh, Path of Afflictions and Order from Chaos, a little bit? Those are
Do you
also
mean,
available on Amazon.com. I might mention for our viewers, just to, sorry to interrupt for just a sec, but Nick Campanella has an author page on Amazon.com. And of course, look at his website first for book orders and possibly signed copies. I don't know. I'm just I'm putting that out there, but nickcampanella.com, NickCampanella.com. And Nick, so is this a departure from your previous books a little bit?
it's a little different. The first two books were one and two. The second one was a standalone sequel, so it was different. You could read book two without reading book one, but this third book here is totally different. Nothing. Well, it's in the same universe of the other two books, but it's not a sequel of any sorts. But it is different in the sense that I think that it is more down to earth. I think it's more for your average person. I think anybody could pick this book up and really like it. Whereas, my second book, Order from Chaos, it takes a certain type of person to really even buy that book. It's kind of a conspiratorial book about, how your average patriot might plot against a tyrannical dictator after World War III. That's not really down to earth. It's kind of science fiction, but it's a lot of fun. And I look at it as that book was kind of like a prequel to 1984. If you ever read that book or watched the movies.
That's an interesting way of putting it. Maybe we could do a little session on that book at another time. It's a
Yeah.
fascinating topic. Are there other things that you find about writing that you need a special place geographically to go to write? Like you keep going back to the same cafe or the same room or your desk or the garage basement or the park? Is there some spot where you find inspiration?
Well, I mean, I get inspiration all over the place, everywhere I go. Sometimes I distract myself. I'm just thinking about this book or the next book. But no, I have a desktop computer, and I used to have a laptop, but they seem to go obsolete. They have all types of problems. The desktop, I've had this, for at least 3 years, and I haven't had any problem. It's nice. I can just put everything there, and I can just go down there and type. I have in my house, it's like a sub basement, and I call it my bunker, and I just kind of hide from the world down there. And
That's
yeah,
great. I have a friend who has a bunker too. It's an amazing spot. Very, very quiet, very peaceful down there. So this new book is out. Are you getting like offers to go on tour a little bit? Are bookstores calling? What's the business like? Because people aren't reading books anymore. And how do we excite people about reading something that can't be synced and doesn't have a lithium battery in it? And you can curl up in bed with a good book. You can't do that so much with a laptop, right? So how do you get this book out there to kind of excite people to want to read again? Because reading is so, I mean, I'm a print literate, I'm a print oriented kind of person. I'm not so focused on screen time. But what do you do to make this book, like, to put it in front of people that they're going to want to read this?
that is definitely one of the best questions I've had in several interviews I've had. I like that. But yeah, this business is super hard, and I tell people it's easier to write a book than it is to sell a book. Yeah, and it's hard to write it. I mean, it takes, each book takes about 2 years and thousands of dollars in editing and so much time that you spend on it. And but yeah, what I do, I try to set up as many interviews as possible. I'm a kind of a shy, quiet basement dweller. I just want to sit in my basement and type. But I get out there, and I last time I passed out 2,000 business cards. I sent out 2,000 messages on Facebook, and I spend as much money as I can possibly scrape up on ads. But none of that really works. All of my friends, they seem, not all of them, but a lot of my friends, they seem to just, they're not readers. They're like, why don't you make a movie and I'll watch it, But I mean, I get people that buy my books just to support me, and then I'll keep bugging them and bugging them and bugging them. They're like, my mom, she's still reading my first book that came out 3 years ago. She's halfway through it. She loves it, but And I have so many of my friends, my best friends in the world. Some of them haven't read the book yet, but I'll tell you, when they do read it, they not only they love it, but they find it hyper intense. But yeah, I mean, this is a really tough business. But I think what's going to happen here is, as I grow as an author and as I get 3, 4, 5, 6 books out there, I keep on growing. And sooner or later, one of these books is going to go viral. Hopefully, this is the one. I figured out a strategy, and that's what you're in the beginning. You're talking about on my birthday, trying to consolidate and organize everyone for that one day. I call it the ebook bomb. I don't know. I think I invented it. If not, I invented the $1 ebook bomb.
Yeah.
And what happens there is, with my research, the algorithm on Amazon, you have to sell 500 books in one day in order to reach the first page on Amazon. Nobody looks on page 550,000th page, which where my other books are at. But if you sell 500 books in one day on Amazon, the algorithm will put you on that top page on Amazon with Stephen King and with some of these other great authors, and you'll be competing. And millions and millions and millions of people will be looking on that just for one day. And there's a potential that it could go viral. Otherwise, I tell my friends, I want this book to sink or swim on its own merits. I think it's a great book. I think it's going to surprise and shock the world, I hope.
Tremendous, tremendous. Is your publisher excited about this too? Is this looks like it's going to be not a slam dunk, but I'm bad with sports analogies, but this is going to be a good one. This is going to
She's
be the one
excited, and she's excited, and she's excited for these couple interviews I've had here. I had an interview on Saturday too, and this interview, so that's going to help. And she wants me to put it on her website. But no, she told me that, and I've had a lot of people tell me that this book they're more excited for than my other two books. Just like I said, it's more down to earth. Even my first book, Path of Affliction, it's about the consequences of stealing a bag full of money from a drug cartel. And that's kind of fun. It's kind of like No Country for Old Men. But a lot of people don't want to really get into the grimy cartel underworld life. And
right.
this book is just more down to earth about your average guy. Caleb Hunt, the protagonist, he's just a cider. He's a construction worker, and everybody in the book is just your average person. And this is
Yeah.
something that could happen to you. We have, in us Americans, we live in this life. In America, we have this false sense of security and safety. We think we're safe, but in all reality, the police and the military, they're here to, you know, deter crime and war,
Right.
and also to respond.
Yeah.
If someone breaks into your house and you're lucky enough to call 911, yeah, the cops will probably be there in 3 or 4 minutes, but them 3 minutes might be problematic for you. And so
Right.
this book kind of gets into that. People are just coming up missing. People are dying from crazy, crazy, crazy ways of
Yeah.
death. I think there's 10,000 ways a person could die. This
Yeah.
serial killer, he finds a few of them.
This is fascinating. So, is there a detective involved? Is there so one of maybe the protagonist becomes the detective in this case? So he's protecting. No spoilers, okay? We're not trying to do spoilers. So I'm
No,
not
there's
in a
several. There's several characters, and there is a detective, and this detective is smart. He's the best detective in Duluth, and he's on the crime scene. But the problem is, I'm going to give a small spoiler here. I'm not really too concerned about it being in the book, but basically, Caleb Hunt, the protagonist, he wakes up in the morning to go to his job in the winter. A lot of us construction workers here, we got to work through this cold winter. So he's all bundled up. He's got his coffee, and he opens up his door, and there's a box sitting on his doorstep. It's addressed to him, but there's no return address. He's confused. He's like, what? He's late for work, but he's curious. So he brings the box inside. He opens the box. It's his best friend's head. He almost has a heart attack. But instead of calling a lawyer, he calls 911. And when the cops come and the detective come, they ask him all the questions that are necessary, but they're kind of suspicious. The detective said that, well, I've never seen anything like this in all of my days working. Heads don't just show up in boxes. But to make a long story short, this detective takes the box, takes the head, runs a forensics on it, and they find, I hope I don't gross anybody out here, but they find pubic hairs in the teeth of the dead man's head. And those
uh
pubic hairs belong to Caleb Hunt, the protagonist. So basically, the serial killer is
planting
Yeah,
in
he's
case,
planting evidence as a distraction. So the cops end up, bringing this Mr. Hunt to jail, and they're all but going to convict him. So the story kind of goes from there because he's got
yeah.
5 or 6 people that he has to kill, and he wants the cops distracted as much as possible.
Well, that doesn't gross anybody out. In fact, that's a brilliant planting evidence to create an orgy of evidence, if you will, is a brilliant way to kind of uh, reveal how easy it would be to frame up somebody, but also sort of how stupid law enforcement can be sometimes when something so obvious as that is happening, right? So anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
not to
They
say,
eventually, and that's how one of the, all your characters kind of have to change one way or another. But yeah, eventually the detective kind of figures it out once the bodies once the people keep on end
yeah,
up getting killed, and Caleb Hunt is in jail. He can't rape and kill people when he's in jail.
yeah, yeah. So this is fascinating, and I'm also happy that you're a Minnesota writer. We need to see more people writing books, and I want to see like a literary resurgence of authors in Minnesota. Minnesota has, some of the greatest authors really, really ever when you think about it. F. Scott Fitzgerald and Sinclair Lewis and just a whole host of people who've taken inspiration, Garrison Keillor and Robert Bly and Carol Bly and all these other fabulous Minnesota writers. I wish you every success, and I'm going to definitely share this out with my friendship network and on social media. I wish you every success, and hopefully we can have you for an author's visit session here in Rochester. Be great to have you do like a book signing and a short talk here in Rochester at some point. And Nick, let me share out your info again. It's nickcampanella.com, nickcampanella.com. And get ready, everybody, to do the buy of his book on February 18th on Amazon.com. And at his website, you can find a link to all that info. And Nick, do you want to make your final case, so to speak, for lifting up the book one more time and say
Yeah,
goodbye as you like?
definitely. Here's my pitch. If you're listening, if you're watching, you are the resistance. We have so many wonderful authors out there, but they never get known. All the establishment people at the top, they basically suck up everything, and they're great authors. But I'm just a hardworking guy, just like everybody else. I have a full-time job. I'm on my lunch break right now, and yeah, I'm just trying to compete at the top levels. I ask you to go to nickcampanella.com and maybe check out my other books. You will not be disappointed. I'm the only author in the world that's willing to, put my money where my mouth is. If you don't like my book, email me and you offer some constructive criticism. I'll send your money back. I hope that don't come back to bite me. But I'll tell I am very confident with my work. I have a lot of work to do. I'm learning from each book and each editor that helps me along the way. But I mean, I think I have pretty intense books. My one thing that puts me a little different than some of these other authors is that I bring the intensity right away and I go all the way through. I never take my foot off the gas. And whereas, with all due respect, let's just say, and not to pick on Stephen King, he's the master. That's when I want a book, I go to Stephen King. But the problem is, on page 200, I'm still kind of, I don't want to say bored, but I'm just kind of still scratching my head wondering when the action is going to, but when you get to the end of that book, you realize why he is a master. And he does that on purpose. He tortures the reader 200-300 pages into it, and then he hits you with the crazy stuff. I don't know if you've ever read The Outsider, a wonderful book by Stephen King. Amazing. I can't hold a candle to him, but I'll tell you what the difference is. My book has an intensity on every single page. You will not be disappointed. Please check out nickcampanella.com. February 18th, Devoid of Light is coming. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Nick Campanella. And we'll see you soon, okay?
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
sir.
this opportunity, Wes. Nice to meet you. I hope to talk again and meet in person someday. Thank you.
Me too. Thanks, Nick.